Hi guys, a question. Is there any value in Labour MPs appearing on GB News? As we know, it's a pro-reform, pro-Nigel Farage outlet. But is there value in members of the government or members of the governing party appearing on the show to push back against anti-Labour rhetoric or to present the government's position on different issues? Now, Barry Gardiner, who appears quite often on the show, was asked about immigration. Have a listen.
Where do we draw the line and say no more? We've had enough. We don't know who we're invited in. We need to draw the line somewhere. At what point is that going to be?
Well, yeah, and I suppose in light of the facts that have come out today, the stats that have come out today of, roughly speaking, based on the Sun's analysis, that 1 in every 100 or so people currently in a migrant hotel is suspected of having committed a crime.
Okay, there's a few things to mention here. First of all, he said suspected. Suspected of committing a crime. Not actually have committed a crime, but suspected. Then he says it's 1 in 100. 1 in 100. Now, we don't know what crime he's talking about here, but according to most data, 8 out of every 100 people commit a crime. 8. And now we're talking about 1 in 100, and we're talking about suspected. And then finally, he points to the Sun newspaper as the source, or who's looked at the analysis. Okay.
Yeah, that would be a good opportunity, Barry, would it not, for the Labour government to go, actually, national security, let's stop this madness.
Well, look, let's distinguish between guilty and suspicion, because the word suspicion could, maybe people in this audience are suspicious of how many, but it doesn't mean they have. But look, let's talk about addressing the issue. And, Jonathan gave a great pitch there, but he had 14 years to do something about it, and he did bugger all.
I think I was one of those very few, Barry, who spoke up. But you know what, Barry, to back you up quickly on this, because it's a fair challenge, I deservedly had my backside handed to me at the last general election because the party I represented failed in its duty to actually get control of our borders. So rightly, I'm here as an ex-MP rather than
So now let's talk about what the government has been doing, right? The backlog in the courts, which is the reason that people are stacked up in hotels, because the courts can't process people through, we've addressed that, and we've now got 5 hotels already closed because we've actually managed to process so many more people through. The
backlog's still 90,000, Barry.
So the hotels are down. The illegal employment is being tackled because we're actually raiding places like that.
Not sharing where the migrant hotels are with Deliveroo, though, which would be the easiest way of doing it.
Well, there may be GDPR reasons why we can't do that.
That's a cop-out, Barry.
But the point is we are raiding those places to get the illegal working sorted out, and the returns have increased by 50%. Now,
voluntary.
Is it enough? No, not just.
Most of them are voluntary.
I'm sorry?
Most of them are voluntary.
If you're talking about the totality of returns, yes, but the actual enforced returns have increased by 50%. So we're actually addressing the issue in a whole series of ways, not just leaving the courts to block up so you can't do anything about it, because only if you've been through the courts can you then do what JJ suggested, and that is to be able to return the people who shouldn't be here.
So, look, once again, is there any value on going on this show and then trying to speak truth to these people? To lay out, okay, this is what the government has done. I think to the audience, it's pointless. To the other people on the panel, it's pointless. But it does reach out to people who are watching GB News. Now, I saw recently data backing up this, that not everyone who watches GB News is a far-right Nigel Farage sycophant. But there are people who just switch it on and listen to it in the background. People who watch it for the celebrity news or stuff like that. So not everyone who's watching it is watching it, through the prism of politics. They're just watching it because it's entertaining. So if the Labour government see an opportunity to push their message here, then maybe they should take advantage of that. Once again, I'm not supporting GB News. I don't think what they're doing is a good thing. But if there is an audience there who are listening to GB News in the background or listening to it, passively in some form, there's an audience that you can latch onto, you can speak your message to. And I don't think it's going to cost Labour anything by doing this. Once again, you're not going to speak to people, you're not going to convince people who have already made up their mind about Starmer, about the government, about Labour. But you may be able to convince some people who are sitting on the fence, or people who are not engaged in politics, who'd be like, oh, okay, actually the government is doing something. Because if you leave it just to the right wing, or if you leave it just to Labour's opponents, they're of course not going to sell the idea that the government have done something. So there is value, I think, in what Barry Gardiner is doing. And Barry is a reasonable person. He's a quiet person. He's not aggressive. He's not boisterous. He's quite calm and collected, and I think he's good at delivering his message. He did call out Jonathan Gullis, rightly so there, and using colourful language to do so. But I think this is a good approach. Once again, I'm not a fan of GB News at all, but it's a good idea to use that conduit to your advantage. But let me know in the comment section, guys, if you think it's a good idea or it's a bad idea to use GB News in this way.